Vox Radio.
Vox Radio.
Vox Radio.
Vox Radio.
You're listening to Vox Radio.
Okay, well, welcome everybody to the first roundtable discussion at the Emergence House, Detroit.
All right.
Today's discussion is going to be about Detroit's community and culture. So to start off, I wanted to go in a circle, have everybody introduce yourself, maybe 30 seconds about yourself, and what community means to you. Try not to take longer than 2 minutes. We'll keep the discussion short and sweet. I'll start off. My name is Christopher Clausen, also known as Seeleman in other circles. I am here in the Emergence House. Community to me means communication and unity. Unity, a collection of individuals coming together to form one single body to do goals together and accomplish everything together. So that's about me.
My name is Rick Yates. I'm from Orlando, Florida. I got to Detroit about 2 months ago. Kind of intrigued with the idea. I like the idea of less and no government. I'm an advocate of voluntary association, peaceful negotiation, and win-win trade. And community, to me, is a result of the lack of authority, of free and voluntary association.
Hi, I'm Nicholas Bryce from Detroit, Michigan. Community to me is mutual cooperation towards, could be a common goal or just other people's needs and mutual energy exchange, cooperation.
I am Sarah Bohan. I have lived in Detroit since April of 2013, down the street here at Fireweed Universe-City, and that is where I first experienced a real community. It's what brought me to Detroit and what has kept me in Detroit. To me, it just means working together to create a higher vision of cooperation for the whole entire world. It's a small community and it's only going to grow.
I'm Zenaura Soluta. I instruct meditation and love life. And community to me is the whole. It is you're either associated or you're not, and so it's about creating connections. Absolutely.
My name is Scott Love, and I've been doing a lot of community activism for many years, organizing meetups and gatherings, and I've been a part of many intentional communities of different scale, like co-housing, circus communities, business communities, and community to me is, I look at, when I see community, I see common and unity, almost like two separate words. And so, to me, community means inclusion, and it means being a part of something larger than your egotistical self, being a part of something that is supportive and loving and nurturing. Now, that's the utopian version of community. But I think anytime you get a group of people together, whether it's for a few moments or a few years, decades, you're going to have some form of community. So what I believe in is not so much I'm here to support community, I'm here to support conscious community. I'm here to support an inclusive community. Because you could say the state of affairs right now is a form of community. So, it's being mindful of what community means. What kind of community? If we're going to be talking about community during this, let's talk about different aspects of community as well. So that's what I have.
Okay. What aspects of community do you have in mind?
Do I have in mind in relation to what?
Well, you said you wanted to talk about the different aspects of community. Did you have anything in mind?
I guess when we say let's replace the word aspects with culture. What are the cultures of the community? I look at the culture of, let's say, the culture of Fireweed. As an outside observer, it's probably different an observation than what it feels like to actually live there. So what are the attributes? I guess it's all about perspective. The attributes that a community might have is supportive and loving and nurturing, like I mentioned before, or it could be disharmony, and it could be dog eat dog, and it could be I'm going to get mine by any means necessary. So even if you have a whole bunch of self-centered, only me, mine, even that's a community. It's the culture. Mm-hmm. So I guess the question is, and I'm going to turn this over to you guys, does the community make the culture, or does the culture make the community?
Might be a little bit of both. I mean, the goal is to create your community, to affect your community, but it takes responsibility. It takes a knowledge that you are responsible for what you do and who you associate with and how you associate with them. And a culture can be without that. You can let other people run your decisions and not know where your opinions come from, or not know where your view has been used in the past, and never really make any decisions and be part of a community. But you can't have a community without conscious effort.
So it's what I'm getting was, when you say that, it's almost as if the community is a herd. So it's like, how do we, what are the things that keep a community from being a herd? Not a herd as in like being heard, as in like a herd of sheep.
Right. Well, to me, in my experience, something that kind of changed my life not so long ago was just the realization of the responsibility I hold owning myself and my actions. To take personal ownership of my body, my mind, my emotions, my decisions, my interactions with others, helped me to see that there was more than just the short-term gain of reacting to stimuli, to just looking out towards my immediate needs or goals. And that led to looking at a bigger picture, of my neighbors and how happy I am when they're happy, or, how even if I had everything I wanted, if the people next to me didn't, that it would be a hindrance, even if I was just looking at my own personal needs.
Sarah, I was going to ask you a question about the Fireweed Universe-City. I know that the global view of Detroit is probably a little bit skewed. How would you say the community of Fireweed operates, or the attributes of Fireweed Universe-City?
Well, within the city of Detroit, we are living in desolate areas where everything is broken and burned down, and so to bring that up to a space where we can live in together and work with one another to create something beautiful and harmonious. I'd say we do look out for each other. You feel like you have a family, and whether you get along with that family all the time or not, they're still going to be there, and they're always there. So, Did that answer your question?
I believe mostly. Nick, thoughts?
Yes. Would say I agree with a lot of what Sarah said. And you may need to repeat the question.
Well, globally, I know, at least for myself, when I heard about Detroit, I know Detroit's going bankrupt. It's the largest municipal city in the country that has gone bankrupt, and the judge just ruled a few days ago that they could proceed with the bankruptcy. So my view on Detroit was, like, Detroit's a horrible city. They're in, like, a terrible condition. And then when I got here, I got to Fireweed University, and I saw all these beautiful things happening. They're fixing up these buildings and making them beautiful again, and making all this art, and it really is like family, like you said. So I guess the question was, like, the difference between the global view of Detroit and what's actually happening here in the heart of the city.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's one thing people won't realize is what's actually going on in Detroit from an outside perspective. You really do need to, like, have an in the city to realize what's going on. Yeah, there's a bankruptcy happening. That's because, on the surface, everything is, like, in shambles and falling apart. But, the people who are actually on the ground floor doing the work, you'll see, all kinds of different efforts to bring the Detroit community together through, urban farming and revitalization of neighborhoods and different artist efforts, art installations, and even Fireweed, this community that is kind of emerged out of the ash and rubble. Who knows if there's more people out there, like, in the city trying to do the same thing. You'd really have to, be here and network around to figure it out. So it'd be an obscure view from an outsider's perspective, for sure.
I want to speak on that.
Sure,
real quick.
yeah.
I don't think that the outside world has a misrepresentation of what's going on in Detroit at all. I think what they think is the truth. They think that we live in a city that looks like Beirut after war. It does. They think we have a city filled with crooked politicians who have been taken from the pot for 30, 40 years. They do. The infrastructure is a joke. The crime and violence is at ridiculous levels. There is no police department. There is no fire department, really. I mean, there are, but they're borderline. So I don't, and it is. If I have a choice, if I'm from, let's say I'm from Scandinavia, and I want to take my family on a nice urban experience, I'm going to go to New York or LA or Houston or Chicago before Detroit. Not because, and I'm not here to say, like, badmouth Detroit. I'm just being realistic. I think I read in this video the other day that there's a 1 in 44 chance that somebody in Detroit is going to experience a violent encounter. 1 in 44. So I don't think it's skewed at all. And I'm not here to badmouth, but I'm also not here to sugarcoat. What I think what's happening here on the ground it's a matter of perspective. We can look at the art and stare at the art so long and be like, oh wow, that's beautiful art, that we forget about what's going on around us. But I think that ignoring or not talking about or not addressing those issues, is something we have to be careful of, because those are the issues that need to be fixed. A chain is only as strong as its weakest link. Why would you work on a link that's already strong when you have a lot of weaker links? So, as far as how we feel on the inside looking out, yeah, we know the people got heart. We know that they have grit. We know that they're determined. We know that they're amazingly talented. They're creative. Think of the music, the art, the culture of Detroit, hip hop, rock and roll. But again, Motown. Again, is it culture or community? Which feeds which? The culture of Detroit is, and regardless of how people don't want to talk about it, is a violent dog-eat-dog, thuggish mentality.
From your experience and your perspective.
No, that's the way it is.
Right. So,
if it wasn't, then it wouldn't be how it is. If it wasn't that stuff, then why is it like that?
I think Detroit, from a global perspective, is the most real experience you can get for what the rest of the world is going through and has yet to been addressed. I think you can go to New York and LA and experience the same thing or not, and Detroit is just the first of what is to come for the rest of the world. We're the first city to crumble, and we're the first city to rise from the ashes.
Well, the thing about it is that Detroit's crumbling was an internal process. It wasn't an external process. It was because of the entitlement of the people of this city. It's because of the entitlement of the politicians. It's because of the corruption. It wasn't like it just happened overnight. It's from years and years and years of corrupt culture.
And is that corrupt culture not going on in the rest of the world, and especially America?
We're not. Yeah, I mean, of course it is. But we're not talking about. At least I wasn't talking about whether or not this is happening. I'm saying, realistically, I think the global perspective of Detroit is pretty accurate.
I think Joe Rogan's right. Detroit's the worst place in the world to be a book. I've seen people every day deal with their problems through violence, through coercion, through insults, through yelling and spanking kids on the street. I've seen people get robbed. I've seen people get stabbed. I haven't even been here that long. This is definitely the end. This is it's the beginning for all other cities. This is what a big city turns into when the world no longer needs it to do what it trained it to do. And you took every child in this city and you put them in a public school and you taught them how to be a good factory worker. And then you took every factory worker and taught them the benefits of staying in the same job and never learning any other skill for 50 years and then taking a pension. And every time one person that works for the city of Detroit does a job, you, as a taxpayer, pay for 3 people to do it. 5 out of 7 murders do not get solved in this city, and those are the ones that are reported. I don't even want to talk about violent crime because, as Scott pointed out, 1 in 44, I don't know whether that's the day of the week, but most people have had at least one violent encounter. The first week I was here, there was a girl raped in a very nice neighborhood, downtown Detroit, right in the middle of a park. You wouldn't think things like that happen, but and to my perspective, the crumbling of the city structure, of the government structure, of all those claimed authorities is actually going to wake people up to take steps on their own to make their life better and not wait for somebody else to do it for them.
This is a great segue to, back to the fireweed. I don't want to give the impression that there's nothing worthwhile going on in the city at all. There's a million awesome souls in the city. Okay, there used to be 1 million. Now there's 600,000 or whatever. And every one of them want the same thing. They all want love, and they all want acceptance, and they all want substance, and they all want abundance. But everyone forgot that. And I'll tell you, to me, I feel like when I say that there's this sense of entitlement in Detroit, I don't think it's anybody's fault, but it is. When you tell somebody that all they have to do is stand in space, this exact same pot, and move these bolts from here to here for 8 hours a day, and we're going to pay you $24 an hour, and then you take their job away, it's almost as if there's this entire culture of, and it developed, I don't know whether it's from the unions, I'm not going to get into any of that, but it's how much can I get for the least amount of effort? How much can I do, or how little can I do to reap the biggest reward?
Yeah, and there's no sense of accomplishment. Like nothing ever gets done. You're doing a part of something.
Part
and
of
you're
something.
Never,
Assembly line.
Yeah, you're never. Yeah, that's a great analogy for Detroit. I mean, it's very apt. Everything is an assembly line. There is a system, and then you go through the system. You see what the least amount of effort you need to put out to get the most amount back, and the end product is somebody else's problem, somebody else's project.
Cool. I just pulled up a website that had 19 shocking facts about Detroit's bankruptcy. I'd just like to read a few of these. It says, number 1, Detroit's revenue fell 40% from 1962 to 2012. The city currently has 9,700 workers, yet has 21,000 retirees drawing benefits. The last one I'm going to read, it says, Detroit's population has declined 63% since 1950, including a 26% decline since 2000. As of December of last year, just 2012, its population was 684,799, down from 1,849,600 in 1950. 1950, yeah.
This town used to rock, by the way. If you look through these neighborhoods, you will see such beautiful places.
Mansion after
you
mansion
will see
after mansion.
mansion after mansion. And to me, I mean, that is just such an opportunity. You can't find what you can find here anywhere else in the world. I mean, there is just so much opportunity to make something that was once beautiful, just breathe some life into it.
Yeah. It's like that the greenest building is the one already built. I've heard that. It's one of my favorites.
And you can tell these houses, a lot of these houses or families were, whole big giant families that loved each other and did lots of work to, this sense of community, this Fireweed, this is nothing new. This is what people have done forever. They have taken charge of how they live their life. They've taken charge of where they buy their food. They know their grocers. They know the people at the hardware store. They know even the fire department and the police department. They know all these people. They're part of the community. It's like Mr. Rogers when you were a kid, But that has been lost. Everything has become compartmentalized. There's so much damage done to people personally that they are just, like some people in the city are just enraged. They're absolutely out for blood. And
or they're conditioned.
Yeah.
It's like one or the other. Either they're angry, really, really angry, or they're just...
Or broken.
Yeah, broken.
Like a horse, yeah.
Their spirit's been broken. And that's the saddest part. That's the saddest part when you're, I'm not driving a vehicle. So if I sit in a bus stop and I see 25 people waiting for this bus, and they all have that same look in their eye of... It's almost like you could wave your hand in front of their face, and they're just like getting on the bus, and they get on the bus, and then there's 100 people on a bus that's made for 50, and it's just like this constant, like I'm being corralled from one place to the other. It's weird, and so what inspires me about Fireweed, is that,
not that I've been
so many people. Is that so many people are inspired?
I saw movies.
But I wonder what percentage of the people that are involved with Fireweed are actually from the city of Detroit. And how many are coming in to
that's
help
a real big
what they
difference
think,
too, right?
solve the city's problems.
There are a lot of people that come into Firewood and they have I've only been here a couple of weeks, but a couple of things I've seen is people that come in and they have all these goals, they have all these directions they want everybody to go into, and they come and go. That's something you're going to deal with your whole life. and they don't do. They just plan, and then it becomes about a plan instead of become about people. And there are already people living here. There are already people. Fireweed is surrounded not on all sides by different communities or families and people, but it is surrounded by people who've lived here and invested and put their heart and soul into their life. And I share their worry that somebody would come in and try to put them on some direction or another.
Mm-hmm. Sarah, how long have you been at Fireweed for?
Since April.
And where did you come from?
I've grown up in Metro Detroit my whole life. Well, not my whole life. I've lived all over the country, but I was basically a suburbanite my whole life. I was bred through high school. I was bred to go to college, and then when I got out and discovered Golden Gate and Fireweed, I just never looked back. I chose living this lifestyle that might be not what most people are used to or accustomed to, but to me, making that decision was the best decision of my life. It's the first time I've found happiness. I've found a sense of family and community, and in the one of the roughest neighborhoods in the world. But
why would you think so many people have wanted to do all these amazing things and then just left?
Because they don't see it actualizing. You can't make something happen overnight. You have to really dedicate yourself to it and see it grow. Fireweed has been established for at least 2 years that I know of, and since that time I've seen it grow completely, change so much. Where I live now used to be a community bike shop where kids could come and do community service and fix up a bike from donated parts. And the guy that started that is no longer part of Fireweed. So to see something that you invested so much in not actualize, it's hard. And I think people are definitely interested in what we're doing. We get a lot of couch surfers, a lot of visitors that think what we're doing are cool, but maybe don't want to invest into it so much. So
it's rough. I think 2008. 2008 or 2009 is when I started organizing it. Mm-hmm. It's like 5 or 6 years.
Mars had some really big beefs. I mean, he gave me some very good reasons why he's not here anymore. Mm-hmm. He was attacked and he was aggressed against, and I wasn't there. I don't know both sides of it. Mm-hmm. But if I was treated in that way by anyone, I would definitely want to get away from them and start thinking about where I'm going to find my happiness,
right?
As opposed to where I'm going to find defensive weapons.
Because at some point you have to decide what is my life worth, and what am I going to? It's like, I'll be honest. I was a part of this community maybe 11 years ago. Lived right across the street from the Emergence house now, and again, I'm back because I want to believe in the community. But it's like, how many times? I mean, I can honestly say that if you are here long enough, not even long enough, it's not going to take that long. Something unfortunate, chances are, will happen. Your car has to be broken into, and I, again, it's like, I feel like I shouldn't be saying this stuff because I want to hype up the situation. I want to support the community. So I guess what I'm really saying, and the point of all this is, okay, I don't think that this issue is going to be resolved by fixing houses so much as it is doing things to help shift the culture of the community in such a way that people start valuing each other and start valuing things, start valuing themselves more. So it's like, I can feel really strongly about being in this house, and my house can look beautiful and I can have it heated, but if I'm afraid to walk to my fucking car,
right,
that's a truth, that's a reality, and there's a reason for that. If I'm afraid to leave my roommates home alone, there's a reason for that.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, security is paramount, and you can't get anything else done if you're worried about the security of yourself and the people you love.
So I guess the question is, how can we help the culture of the community? That's why I'm very excited about the Emergence House. I'm very excited about the location of the Emergence House. Symbolically, you have Fireweed or by Nate on one side, you have the Emergence House on the other. So people drive past 2 points of light as they're going into the community. I really feel that, and I think it's really important energetically. I think that we need to practice a sense of inclusion, but also discernment. So where's that balance, How do we connect with the community in such a way that they don't feel like they've talked down to, they don't feel like we're here to save them, because nobody wants to be fucking saved. Excuse my language, I dropped 2 F-bombs already, but, I'm pretty passionate about it. Nobody wants to be saved.
Right.
They want to be taught, they want to be loved, they want to be supported, and they want to be encouraged.
Well, they want to be respected. They want to feel safe in their homes as well.
Yep.
But they don't want somebody to come in and save them. They want to be a part of something, and maybe have been kind of had experience in the past of where they've had maybe efforts or some kind of situation where they've helped their neighbors, and then maybe it wasn't reciprocal, and had bad experiences from that, kind of gun shy to do it again, and there's lots of things going on, and that is one thing I see about Fireweed is there are a lot of things going on.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people, a lot of different people doing a lot of different things, and I think that's excellent. And I'm worried that an effort of this word community, I guess this is what we're talking about, that people can take that idea of whatever that word community means to them and put it over the individual people that are within it. And that's something that I worry.
I would explain that maybe a little better.
All right. You have this ideal, okay, well, you really have to kind of get into the wobbliness of words, of how the same word can mean a different thing to different people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we went around and we talked about what community means to us and as individuals. And I've seen different people put an ideal of what they think community is above the people that are within it. I've seen this goal that's all the way down the road somewhere, where everybody's going to get the benefits of, but to do that, you're going to have to make personal sacrifices and constantly personal. It's always something to give up now for something later. And there is a place for that. It's just like you're talking about, like, how do you deal with others in a way that shows respect and still be friendly and still worry, still discern between, what their motivations may be. And when you put a great big ideal, and it's the word, it can be used so many different ways that not everybody has that same idea of when they use that word or when they use that concept, that idea. And so you get all the work done, and then you never get the benefit, And when I tackle it kind of from the other direction, which is I treat every individual with respect. I try to show kindness and show compassion and empathy, and I think that's the only way I can affect the world is just by treating people the way I do.
So it's almost like there's this carrot in front of the horse that the horse is never going to get to.
Yeah. So there's not like some great ideal I'm going towards down the road. My end ideal is just to treat people with kindness, to treat people with respect their preferences, respect their person, respect their property, and that's the end goal to me. If other people can learn from that, if other people like what I do or see somebody else do that and they like it and they find out how useful it is in your life, how much peace and joy you find when you just treat others with respect. That you don't need an end goal or an ideology or anything else. You just need to do that. That's it.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but I hear you.
I hear you.
Scott proposed the question, how do you change the culture of the community? One of the few things he said was treat people with respect, empathy, and kindness. Nick, do you have anything to add to that? How do you change the culture of the community?
Yeah, those are all good, solutions to implement if they aren't already.
Mm-hmm.
What are?
You want to
Respect,
repeat it
empathy,
again?
and kindness.
Yeah, towards each other. Well, yeah, just separation can be really, destructive, and if there's a community that's not communicating with each other, that over time will lead to just gaps in relationships, and it'll create misunderstanding, and so just really like a space for people to have with each other, to feel they can approach each other with whatever they have to express is important.
And Sarah?
I agree. I think that's a great mentality to have for not only Detroit, but the whole world. It's just the golden rule: treat others as you would like to be treated, and make that change within yourself, and then others will see that and be inspired by that change and want to make that change for themselves. I look at Ricky and Nick's hands, and they're both dirty and grimy, and I can tell that they were doing work today. And it wasn't just for themselves, it was for the greater community. And to me, that's inspiring. It makes me want to get off of my butt and go chop some wood and make some mortar to build a rocket stove and deliver food. And it's not just, the central community, it's the greater community of the world that this mentality can be caught on. Others can see it and be inspired to make that change for themselves and their community.
I'd like to amend the golden rule to treat others as they would like to be treated, as they show that they are treated.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I like certain things doesn't mean that other people would. I mean,
Maslow's
that's
hierarchy of
definitely
needs.
another
So.
topic.
Are you still recording? Is one of your computers closed?
Yeah, I have that right there. The computer was dying, so
Okay.
yeah, but I still have that on, so
Okay, cool. You want to take a break and come back on another topic?
we can. Yeah. So just to close with this segment, then, one of the questions was, how do you change the culture of the community? Because if you don't fix the weakest link, then why are you doing it? A few of the responses were people want to feel like they're respected. So you treat people with respect, empathy, and kindness. You have communication with those people, and you treat others the way that they want to be treated. Anything to add, anybody? Or we take
Well, I mean, eventually, maybe if I get my thoughts together a little better, I'd like to introduce the concept that there is no such thing as a culture.
Okay.
I mean, it's all just individuals acting a certain way, and you can describe it as that, but, you really have to get into the individuals. You have to, why does this individual act this way, or use this tactic to get what they want, or, feel that this is acceptable or that is acceptable. It's a much longer subject than it's not an easy question.
Well, let's just take a break on that for right now, and then everybody could think about that, and possibly we'll come back to it. Everybody feel good with that? Cool.
Yeah, it's just like part of the using these big giant terms like culture to explain away individual action.
Mm-hmm.
When in my world, all of that is centralized, all of that is internalized, all of that is owned by the people who act it. And you can let other people, tell you what to do, or you can be influenced by them, but your decisions are your decisions.
See, I look at culture as being like this big picture thing. You have, again, like economies of scale, communities of scale, cultures of scale. Like, for example, when CeeLo and I get together, right, there's going to be an alchemy, and that alchemy is going to create an effect. We're either going to be really inspired, or we're really not going to be inspired, or we're going to do a lot of drugs, or we're not going to do a lot of drugs, or we're going to meditate, or we're not going to. But the two of us create a kind of culture or an effect. And I guess that's when I look at the word culture, that's kind of like the stew is cooking, and you can tell because you can smell it in the air. The culture of the stew influences.
Well,
the air.
those work on conscious and
But
subconscious
it's
levels.
it's all the individual things coming together. So when I say culture, I mean it's like, what is the influence or the effect of all these things coming together, or what's the characteristics of the community? I guess you could say, you know. So that when I use, so maybe I'm not using the word culture properly, but when I say,
I don't know. I mean, that's why I got that book on semantics. Was
Right.
it's a subject that I really like to get into. And
a good friend of mine, Blair, who's passed away, an amazing singer-songwriter, he was, I think he said one time that a culture is a place where growth occurs.
If it depends how broad you use the term culture,
Right,
I guess.
exactly.
Yeah. If you're gonna take all the bad parts out of it and just leave the good, and if there's a moral judgment,
Growth isn't
yeah.
good or bad. Growth is neutral.
Yeah.
Depends on what spores are planted.
There is something that I kind of want to get into on this, which is one reason why. I'm not even getting into public schools or whatever, so we'll just go to, or I'll just go to the use of moral judgments within language, of to where when anything is permissible and nothing is owned, that nothing is owned. I don't think I translated that right. When even right or wrong, correct or incorrect, is a moral judgment, can be a moral judgment. Other people will morally judge you as a good or a bad person if you are correct or incorrect. Mm-hmm. When so many judgments are within the language, that it's either the good guy or the bad guy, and the dichotomies, when so many parts of the language are that, and you don't really have a moral compass to stand on, you don't have like a means and a method of differentiating, what this subject is or that subject is. So this would be a moral issue, like murder would be a moral issue. Having the wrong opinion on a football team, or having an unpopular opinion on tactics for winning a basketball game is not a moral question. But so many things are broken down into those moral things. Or you're a good guy, you're a bad guy, or you're a good boy, which was.
I'm a good boy.
You're a good boy.
You want to be a good boy,
My
right?
mommy
You're a
told me I
really
was a
good
good
boy.
boy.
Yeah. And that becomes why you do things, is because you want to be a good boy, instead of because you want to, because you see the benefit of it, you see the logic in it, you see the
Well, guys, let's and ladies, let's push pause for a minute and come back on a new topic.